Welcome to my latest webinar, and thank you for joining me today for this business growth webinar. I'm sure, like many of my own clients, the reason why you signed up to this webinar, the reason why the information on Eventbrite made you book your place today, is that you're looking for a business that operates without you, will run like clockwork without you, but also make money with less effort. And that's why I've written this webinar to deliver today in terms of the step change to significant business growth. I'm looking to provide you with some steps that you can take away and develop on your own business. And when I make reference to significant, that significant can only ever be defined by you. I could say what significant means to me. I could read some quotes from some gurus' books, but ultimately it's what's important to you. I've got one client that's significant to them is to be able to work a 3-day week so they can spend more time with their disabled child. And I've got another client that's aiming for a £1 million business in the next year with a 20% net bottom line. So, what does significant look like for you? What I'm hoping today is that I don't think the 10 steps are going to sort of surprise you. I don't think necessarily the content will blow you away, if you like, but it will be that reminder that I believe that most business owners need to keep us focused on what are those essential steps that we need to think about, and also the step change that we need to make. We often need to make a step change, not just a simple change in our business, if we're going to really have the business that we desire and that our hard work deserves. And my 10 steps are really to give you that control, confidence, consistency to be able to grow your business with confidence. Personally, I see too many business owners that are frustrated, they're perhaps stagnating, even getting to a point where they're actually starting to hate their own business and they don't perhaps achieve their goals because of the barriers that they face. So if I may, just a little bit about myself, and those that don't know me today, that originally when I left school, went to Barclays, worked my way to be Barclays area manager of the startup team in Oxfordshire. I then left Barclays to join a leisure industry company that was breaking away from the district council in South Oxfordshire, South Oxfordshire Leisure Limited. And Seoul were the first of that kind to do so. So we were in a fairly unique place. My role was about developing the leisure facilities and selling the memberships. And then after a period of time, early 2000s, I started my own businesses. I have had a number of businesses, from a bookkeeping management accounts business to a marketing company, from a training company to a health and safety consultancy, from a membership organisation to a soft play centre. And as well as holding other senior advisory roles, I've also, I guess, my expertise is strategies and models and establishing what works for the business and then getting good people around me to deliver that. And that's what I hope to be able to share with you today. So ideally, when we look at our business, when you look at our business in a holistic approach, that's what I believe I bring to the clients that I support, it actually should all fit together nicely like a jigsaw puzzle. But unfortunately for many businesses it doesn't, and it may only be one piece that's disjointed, but actually that can throw the whole business structure, the whole business model out because of how they're all interlinked. So the 10 steps that we're going to be looking at today in terms of helping you think about your business to run like clockwork, will actually see some sort of flow as we go through the day. Now, first step is to know and analyse your starting point. I believe this is a critical point. It's a point whereby often business owners aren't really honest about what their starting point is and what position they are in when they are ready to start their business or to start the growth of their business. So, for example, at the startup stage, it may be that no, I haven't got any pipeline, but actually in reality, through our existing contacts, we've got already family, friends, business associates, past work colleagues. There is going to be some business in there. So if we're not honest with that, and when we have that little peak of initial work, then it plateaus. We can't really establish why it's plateaued. So, being honest with our starting point. But the main point of your starting point, particularly for a growth business, is what's your gap? What's your skills gap? What's your knowledge gap that you have right now with yourself and also with your team that you have around you? And when I talk about team, I talk about your internal people, so those on your PAYE, and those of your external team, that may be your advisors, that may be subcontractors, your supply chain, for example. So what are the gaps that you have in your business? Now, it may be, say, a knowledge gap, or it may be a skill gap, it may be a technology gap, it could be that some software could fill that gap for you. How do you establish what that is so that you have the foundations for growth? So, creating a business is a little bit like building a house. If you've got a weak foundation, it's not built on strong foundations, as you start to grow the business, it's likely to wobble and potentially fall and collapse around you. So consider that around what your strong foundation is. One thing that I always talk about with business owners is, particularly in their own role, is to think about their job today, what it is they're going to do today, what part of the business is that. So today, is it the finance director? Tomorrow, is it the operations director, marketing director, etc. And that's really important, particularly at startup stage or early scale, when you haven't perhaps got the full team around you, to consider, okay, well, what are the roles that I'm good at, that I enjoy doing, or I'm not good at, or I don't enjoy doing? Because that enables us to think really clearly about the things that we can first outsource or bring somebody else in to do for us. And I see too many business owners actually recruit people to do the things that they do love doing, and again, start to fall out of love with their own business. The other thing to think about is that the growth mindset, and this is that belief that you're in control of your own destiny, you're in control of your own ability, and yes, you can learn and you can improve, but the key to the success, I believe, is that yes, there'll be some hard work and effort required, but it's that persistence where, and particularly in this period of time where we've been through lockdown, I think it's been the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs, because we've been unable to perhaps look forward as clearly as we were able to because of other obviously blockages, things that we're not in control of. Or it may be that just that underlying belief that you have in your product or your service, that's actually going to drive you through the ups and downs that you're going to face as an entrepreneur. So I'd say the first point is knowing and analysing your starting point. The second step is around your time management, and I think with the majority of clients that I work with, trying to find more time in their business or to better use their time is one of the main factors. So what can you do to maximise your time, to make the best of your time so you have more time to work on your business rather than working in your business? And are you clear about what those ramifications of poor time management are? And I thought for this section, rather than just talk about poor use of time or effective use of time, I'd focus on some tools that you can perhaps use to better manage your time. Now, you'll hear me use a phrase called high payoff activities quite often. And a high payoff activity is those things that you have to do in your business without distraction for the development of your business. And if you're not working on your high payoff activities, you're likely to be being distracted, to be interrupted too often, or just firefighting, or just sort of drifting. So what tools we can use? Well, the first two obvious tools to use that we all have access to is our to-do list and our diary. First of all, this to-do list, I recommend that you prioritise your to-do list every single day, even if it means rewriting your to-do list. And personally, I'm a fan for writing out to-do lists, because as you write things out, it reminds you why you've not done things, why you need to do those things, rather than if you've got them like on an Outlook to-do list. It's easy to just click it, drag it, or click it and change the date really simply without really thinking about the task. The other thing in terms of the prioritisation is thinking about, okay, well, how do you want to prioritise your business? Activity isn't going to be around the revenue generation, it's going to be around customers, it's going to be around your team, it's going to be around you, and establishing how you're going to prioritise. Then when you do prioritise, you've got a nice list to work through. And you'll find when you prioritise effectively, the things that are not nice to do, the things that are not easy to do, they tend to shift their way up a to-do list rather than the things that are really easy or really simple to do, or the things that we really love doing. And what I then encourage you to do is then to move those to-do items into your diary. Now, looking at your diary, I encourage you to blow your diary up as wide as you can, as a minimum for 1 to 31 days in the month, so that you can actually see the gaps that you've got in your diary. I think with technology, particularly mobile phones, we can see a small view of our diary, so we try and cram things in. But actually, if we open our diary up, we can see where the gaps are. And rather than trying to plan something, for example, next Tuesday when you're going to be out of the office all day, and therefore only beat yourself up for not achieving it, you can start to plan in blocks in your diary from those to-do items. And talking about blocks in your diary, I recommend that you block out time in your diary. If you looked at my diary, you'd see I've got 3-hour slots, 1-hour slots, 1.5-hour slots, or half-hour slots. And they're basically multiples of the 3 hour. 3 hours is probably the maximum I can work without needing a break or needing a distraction. And then the multiples are for different tasks. So the 3 hours may be for working on my business, it may be a strategy session with one of my clients, or a mentoring session. For 1.5 hours, maybe a webinar. A half hour, maybe a prospect call, for example. Then when somebody wants to book some time with me, I'm in control of my diary. I know when I work best for those different sessions, so I've got those sort of blocked out. So I work best in the mornings with my client sessions, so those 3-hour sessions are always in the mornings, and my prospect calls tend to be in the afternoons. So think about when you work best, think about blocking out your diary into little chunks. I'm sure you've all heard of the time management matrix, the making sure we're doing important what's perceived to be non-urgent tasks. And they're things like our business planning, our proactivity, our marketing, etc. What we tend to do is we get pulled up into that box, which is important and perceived to be urgent. Things like our emails, things like our telephones, things like interruptions from our teams. So, we start in the middle with all the best intentions to get up into that proactive box, but the phone goes or the email goes, we jump into that box, we firefight and we deal with that. And then to recover, we jump down into the non-urgent, non-important box, which is things like surfing the web, having a coffee, having a chat with somebody. We then reset with all the best intentions to get into the proactive box again. And what happens? We start firefighting again. So again, by effectively planning our diary, we can control our use, like the time management matrix, to get into that proactive box and work on our business. Once you're really clear about what your high power activities are, then you can really easily identify when you're interrupted or when you're distracted. And I encourage all my clients to run a distraction log. It's one piece of paper and a line straight down the middle. On the left-hand side, who's interrupted you? On the right-hand side, why did we interrupt you? And over a period of time, you'll start to get some patterns. And then the patterns you can manage. So it may be a particular individual that's interrupting you all the time. It could be a member of the family, it could be a client or customer, it could be a member of a team, someone in your supply chain. It's somebody who wants your time perhaps more regularly than you're able to give it to them. And therefore you can manage their expectations, manage that person. On the right-hand side, the reasons why they've interrupted you, then you can start to think, okay, well, did I need to deal with that? Could somebody else in the business deal with that? Does it need a process or a system developing or improving to make sure that therefore I don't need to be interrupted, to be asked that question or whatever that interruption may have been? So a really powerful one-page document to think about how you can effectively better use your time going forward. But remember, think about those high-power activities, those things that you have to do in your business without distraction. So hopefully there's a couple of tools there that help you manage your time more effectively. But some of the other things I'll come on to a little bit later, systemization, processing, etc. But making sure we've all got the same amount of time every day, how do you maximize yours? The third area, and I think this can actually help your time management, is the clarity of your mission, vision, goals, and objective. So I think if you have that clarity, it can help you develop and drive your business. But it helps you make decisions. So, for example, if you get asked to do something that isn't part of your mission, vision, goals, objectives, your high power activities, then it's easier to say no. I don't need to do that. So, what is your why? And if you've never watched the TED Talk by Simon Sinek, then I certainly recommend that. Helps you really establish why the why is so important in your business. And I use that with my clients to reset their thought pattern, particularly when the business is on these ups and downs that I talked about earlier. So, what is your why? Why are you in business? What is it you're looking to do? And then therefore, how are you going to achieve that? And you'll see the diagram at the bottom right-hand corner. This is something that I always run through with particularly startups, but any of my clients when they're going on the growth drive, to make sure that they do love their business. It's something they're good at and it's paying them well. Because if you don't have all those three key factors, this is the things that help us to fall out of love with our business. So, for example, if I love it and I'm really good at what I do, but I'm not getting paid for what I think I'm worth, then I'm going to start to not enjoy my business as much. I'm going to start to think the wrong things about my clients, my customers, etc. Or vice versa. If I'm love what I do and it's paying me really well, but I'm not good at it, then I'm only going to dream about it, be able to dream about it, because actually I'm going to be found out at some point because I'm not good. So, those three things are really clear. In terms of clarity, one of the things to really think about is, can you clearly communicate your vision, mission, goals, and objectives to your stakeholders? That may be your team, maybe your prospects, customers, your supply chain needs to support you, for example, your board, whoever that is. Because if you can't clearly communicate what your vision and mission is, then how can you expect that to be followed? And I use the analogy quite often about an aeroplane. Normally, when we get on an aeroplane, the pilot will land where we need it to be, because basically he knows where he's going. He's programmed the plane to get there, and then he's managing the flight to effectively. So consider your goals. Consider the win image as I have on that side, because I think with your goals and objectives, your vision and mission, it gives you something to aim for. And how I work with my clients, saying, okay, where you are now, where do you want to be in 3-5 years' time? We then think about that trajectory and we say, okay, well, let's bring that back to a year's time. If you're going to stay on that trajectory, what's that going to look like in a year's time? Then once we're really clear on that vision, then we break that down to 90-day sprints. Okay, for the next 90 days, what is it that you need to achieve without distraction? What activities, what's your high-power activities that you need to focus upon? Now, I talk here about goals. Now, I'm going to just quickly run on to effective goal planning, because back in 2008, I did some research with a guy called John Harris about some effective goal planning. And what we established was that many people plan their goals in terms of what they want to achieve and by what date. And then they jump straight into the activities and they start running along, trying to strive towards their goal, and then they hit a brick wall. And because they can't then get around the brick wall, they bail out. Now, what we established is by adding some steps, it made the goal planning much more effective and saw that many more people achieved their goals. So what steps did we introduce? Well, a couple of steps that were introduced was around motivation. What motivates you to achieve the goal? Was that to the positives, or is that the negatives? And you'll be motivated by the positive or the negative. It's likely to be 75-25% for either way. But I encourage you to document both and then have those clearly documented alongside the goal that you've written out, because again, it's proven that if you write your goal out, visualize your goal, you're more likely to achieve it. But what's the benefits of achieving the goal? How are you going to feel when you achieve your goal? What's the knock-on effect of achieving your goal? And vice versa, if you don't achieve the goal, how are you going to feel? What's going to be the negative knock-on effect of not achieving that goal? The next step is then to think about, who do I need to share this with? Is this somebody in my team? Is it somebody in my family? Is it my partner, business partner, or personal partner? Because accountability helps you achieve your goals. Say, for example, if you went to the gym, if you were not really motivated about going to the gym, you could easily miss a few sessions. But actually, if you get a gym buddy like I did, then you don't miss a session, because you're letting that person down as much as you're letting yourself down by not being there. But the key aspect before you jump into any action activity is to think about two more steps, and that's your obstacles and your solutions. Now, if you're doing your goal planning, and I said to you, okay, what's going to stop you from achieving your goals? I guarantee you could give me a long list of all the things that are likely to stop you from achieving your goal. So write that list down. Write that list down on one piece of paper down the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, then write a solution that would overcome that obstacle. So does it need some money investment? Does it need some time investment? Does it need an accountability partner, etc., etc., etc.? And then when you build in your action plan, build in your solutions. Pull your solutions down into your action plan. So when your action plan becomes a checklist of done, 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 move on to the next one, as you're ticking off your solutions, what should never appear is those obstacles that stop you from bailing out and stopping you striving towards your goal. So again, those things can dictate your high payout activities. So all those solutions should be therefore your high payout activities. So again, effective goal planning can all be part of you striving towards your mission, vision, goal, and objective. I've just launched a new webinar that's going to be starting next month about your strategy on one page, and this will help you think about what your mission and vision is and how that translates into the effective goal action steps that you need to take to achieve your goals. So the fourth step then is about your ideal customers, and I'm an advocate of focusing on your ideal customer. Yes, you could work with anybody potentially, but we all have a limited resource in terms of our time and in terms of our money and how we can best invest that. Now, if I, for example, I used to run a membership organisation for bookkeepers. If I'm a bookkeeper, people are going to come to me, people are going to find me, people are going to be recommended to me if I'm a bookkeeper, because that's obvious. They're going to find me on a search, people in my network are going to know me as a bookkeeper, they're going to refer me. But what I can do is I can be much more focused on who I want to work with and be able to profile that ideal customer. And the benefits of profiling our ideal customer, what do we used to see, I guess, in terms of when we used to profile our target market, if you like, we used to say, okay, what's the demographic? Are they based in a county? Are they a certain size business? Then we sort of saw businesses moving into vertical markets and niches and saying, okay, well, is it I want to work in a science and tech business or retail or whatever that may be? And now we're seeing a bit more specific profile, and particularly around the buyer profile. So saying, okay, well, what's the gender of the individual? How old is the individual? What's their interests? What vehicle do they drive? What paper do they read? Because all that can influence that visualization of that ideal customer, and therefore I can communicate with that ideal customer much more clearly when I can visualize them, see them, and understand how they like to be communicated to. Because if they read a particular paper, drive a particular drive a particular car, then that's going to be able to sort of, I guess, give us a flavour in terms of how we should communicate with that person. Also, by profiling our ideal customer, we can understand their pain, their problems, the solutions that they're looking for, so how they can gain from using that solution, so they can continue to lean towards you with interest. And for me, that's what it's about. It's about how can they continue to lean towards me with interest, say, yes, that is the solution that I need, and yes, you are the person that can help me. And as they continue to lean towards you with all those different touch points, they will then buy more effectively from you. The other benefit of knowing your ideal market is that you can adapt to your market. Yes, there'll be benefits for your proposition, and yes, there'll be benefits for your marketing strategy. But when you're actually working with your customers, you can adapt quickly to any change in the market, and you can show greater empathy because you understand and truly understand. Don't just say that you understand, you truly understand the market that you're working in. And by knowing your ideal customer, you can establish what they're really willing to pay for. So this comes back to some research. Are you good at effective research and establishing what your ideal customer is really prepared to part with their money for? So think about building the profiles of your ideal customers. You could have just one ideal customer profile. You may have a number of vertical markets that you've been aiming for. But again, just show that understanding you have with your market in all your communication pieces or the conversations you're having with your prospects. Which leads us really nicely into then positioning your business. So if you can focus on your ideal customer, it really makes your positioning of your business much, much easier. Because when you come back to your value proposition, you can really shape what's unique about your business, what's your true differentiator that gives you that value to be able to say that we are the person, the business that you need to lean towards. When we think about positioning, one of the things that sort of jumps to mind for most businesses is how do I price? And pricing is never easy for any business, and we never really know the ultimate price unless we test it. Now, the obvious ways to test our price, to position our pricing, is okay, what are the competitors charging? Do some market research. Now, that's not necessarily to undercut them, because that's a dangerous place to be in, because it's difficult to put your prices up. You can be perceived to be the poor partner of the market space, or it just gets you into a price war because established businesses can just come and undercut you and take your legs away from you. The second way is then think, particularly if you, for example, like a consultancy business, how much do I want to earn in a year? How many hours am I prepared to work for that? Now, those number of hours I'm prepared to work, how many of those are going to be fee earning hours, and how many of those are going to be administrative hours? and by the amount you want to earn, by the amount of hours that you're going to be fee earning for, gives you an idea about what your hourly rate would be. Although I'm not an advocate of hourly rates, I'm more about personally about value pricing, about project pricing, but that's for another seminar. And the one really in terms of the pricing is to think, okay, it is about value pricing. What is it that someone's prepared to pay for my services? And we don't know really until we ask the questions. So again, effective research with our ideal clients, customers, will actually help us to establish what people are prepared to pay for that. Now again, go back to my bookkeeping membership organisation. A number of conversations I had where people had a flat rate fee for all the bookkeeping services they offered, whether that was number crunching, whether that was VAT returns, whether that was their management accounts. Now, if you spun that around and put yourself in the buyer's shoes, you'd say, well, for number crunching, I don't really value that, just crunching through the numbers. But actually getting my VAT return correct, submitting it accurately so that I don't get challenged by HMRC and keeping HMRC up my back, I'm prepared to pay more money for that. It may be that producing management accounts or doing credit control to collect money that's overdue is valued much more than just a number crunching. So it's just an example from a bookkeeper's perspective, but what is it in your business that creates the value in your price? And I would suggest that if you're converting 100% of your inquiries, then your pricing can go up a little bit. If you get to a point whereby 8 out of 10 that you're converting, you're probably getting to some sort of sweet spot if it's around the pricing. But I'll come back on to sales a little bit later. So what is your unique selling point? What is it that you're offering that creates that differentiation for you? And is that then consistent through your messaging? A real simple tool is a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, where you can start to see, particularly through your strengths, what your unique positioning could be for your business. And I think it's then really around when we've then got our business, how can we package it? And it may be that your business is just productized and you can't put these packages together. But again, if you go back to my bookkeeping clients, then an early conversation was, when you go and sell bookkeeping, are you packaging with that payroll, credit control, management accounts, etc.? Because what tended to happen is, can you come and talk to me about bookkeeping? Yes, I can talk to you about bookkeeping. Talk to me about bookkeeping, win the bookkeeping work, come away from the meeting, I've not had a conversation about payroll, credit control, etc., all the other services. So what we encourage the bookkeepers to do is to say, okay, well, there's the standalone bookkeeping, but actually you have bookkeeping with payroll or bookkeeping with credit control or menu pricing, a little bit like when you go and buy a car. When you go up models, you get more things added on. So how can you build those into your offering? How can you position your business in the packages, knowing your ideal customer and knowing what it is that they're likely to part with in terms of their hard-earned cash, and actually what it is that they need as a solution to support their type of business. And as I touched upon a couple of times, positioning your business will be much more effective if you do your research. And go back to my days in the bank, I used to always challenge someone's market research, because quite often the market research consisted of who are your friends and family, who are your close associates, and did they think the business was a good idea? Well, those people are going to support you in the main, and it takes a really good friend to stop and say, actually, I don't think that's a good idea, you shouldn't do it. Most just pat you on the back and wish you good well because they want the best for you. And again, this flow, as I mentioned earlier, goes into the sixth step, which is then about the marketing tactics that you choose. The positioning of your business leans towards your sort of marketing strategy, I guess, in terms of who it is you want to work with. Then we think about the tactics, about, well, okay, if we know who we want to attract towards the business, the ideal customer, because the other thing about ideal customers is they're much more enjoyable to work with, because they are your ideal customer, but you position them as your ideal customer because of certain traits. So we want more of those. So from our marketing tactics, how do we find more of those ideal customers? Are we fishing in the right ponds? Is a reference that I make quite often. You can see on the right-hand side a number of different ways that we can market our business, the tactics we can use, the traction models that we can And this marketing aspect is in the funnel, trying to get more people into that funnel. I've got an ebook that you're quite welcome to download, which is 51 more ways to win more customers. But if we think about these right ponds, if your prospect, for example, is not online, then why are you investing in digital marketing? Invest in some offline marketing tools to attract your customers, or vice versa. If they're only online, then you need to be investing in digital. And with your marketing, make sure you're consistent. So, for example, if you're going networking and you're saying verbally what your business is, when somebody is interested, they go away, they check you out online, maybe through your LinkedIn profile or your website. Is it consistent? Because if it's not consistent, you will confuse the prospect, and the prospect will then bail out because they're confused. You think about the last purchase you went to make. If you were confused, you went and found another supplier. It's going to be exactly the same for your business. So is your website the same as your networking message? Is it the same as what your referrers are saying about your business, etc.? So consistency online and offline is so key. With all these marketing tactics, you have to be proactive, and proactive in terms of taking your business to those prospects. For a lot of our businesses, it's going to be quite difficult for the prospect just to find this, even if it's on a search online. And I talked about networking, and I personally, when I'm talking about networking, I'm a huge advocate of networking. Many of you that know me know that because I run my own networking group, do a lot of networking. But when I talk about networking, I break the word networking down. So I talk about who is in your network to start with, who do you ideally want in your network, then throw a net over them and selfishly keep them and think about what you need to do to keep them in your net, keep yourself front of mind. And then the key word in there is the work. If you think about the word work, I need to work my network. I use a scale of 1 to 5, but basically that means what do I need to do with each of those individuals in my network to either encourage them to buy from me or to refer me. And is that something that I need to do on an individual basis? That's something to do en masse, like a newsletter, for example. And again, it's just making sure that I'm front of mind with all my customers. Now, a book that I recommend reading is a book called Traction, which talks about 19 different traction models. And some of those are listed down the right side. It's a different link, but similar to some areas of focus. And what that talks about is 19 areas, brainstorming all those 19 areas, bringing a few into the middle zone, like a dartboard, and then into the bullseye is the one or maybe two that you focus on because you know that they're the ones that are going to win your business. And in the middle zone, they're the ones where you're 4 or 5 where you'd invest and you test in your marketing, but you test small to start with. So think about what it is that you're bringing to the table, and invest in those core. Don't try and do everything. So, for example, on social media, don't try and do every single platform really effectively. Think about where your ideal customers are likely to be and where you can focus upon. So that leads into then sales. So how do we win more customers? How do we convert more customers? Going back to our funnel, the marketing is bringing more people into the funnel at the top. Now it's about squeezing out as many people as possible. So what does your marketing and your sales funnel look like from where you go from? And I'm sure you've heard the phrase know, like, and trust many times. Well, I personally add in a 4-step, which is rapport. So it's know, like, rapport, and trust. Because I believe that if you don't have a rapport or you don't establish a rapport, it's much more difficult to build trust. So think about who it is that you're engaging with, who's your buyer. What's the journey that they're likely to go on as a buyer? They go to your website, they're going to meet you and network with you, and they're going to ask to be referred to somebody who offers what you offer. What's their journey? How does your sales process map that journey? How does it match it? And with your sales process, think about the number of steps you have on that journey. So again, you might have 6 core steps on your journey from when they're lurking, when they're making an inquiry and interested, to making a proposal or a quote, to becoming a customer. And if you map out that process and you establish what it is you do in a systemized way, each of one of those steps, it's really clear when you start measuring those to say, well, if they fall out at step 3 all the time, they're falling out at step 3, know you've got to improve step 3. Step 3 may be an email communication or a verbal communication, which you then need to tweak the words that you're using. It may be that it's therefore another stage, which is about your online presence. Therefore, you need to change what you've got online, whether that's a landing page, whether that's the page you're referring to on the website, your call to action, or whatever that is that you need to be. So understand your funnel, understand how that matches your customer's journey and how you're building that know, like, and trust, but also building the rapport during that place. So again, you're engaging interest, you're pulling people towards you at each time. But remember, people buy solutions. They buy solutions to their pain, problems, and their fear. So what is the pain, problem, and fear of your ideal customer? Going back to ideal customer a few steps ago, what's their pain, problem, and fear, and what's your solution for that pain, problem, and fear? And then during these steps, you're just exposing yourself as much as you can. You're building that rapport with your customers and establishing and repeating what works. Step 8 is then about making the numbers work and being a numbers man, i.e. the number of roles I had in the past involving numbers. You'd think that I'm talking about profit margins and turnover. Actually, I'm not, because actually turnover, your margin, and your profit are only outcomes of all the other great activity in your business. And it disappoints me when I see dashboards from accountants or software providers which basically says these are the things you need to measure. Yeah, they're great to measure for outcomes, but you need to be measuring deeper. So what are the numbers that drive the success of your business? So, for example, if we take revenue or income, turnover, 3 things that tend to, in most businesses, drive that is the number of people that buy from you, the number of times they buy from you, and your average sales value. And if you understand those 3 factors and you drive those 3 factors, you will drive the resulting revenue. So just to sort of, I guess, explain a little bit more how I'm referencing this. When I, again, in my banking days, saw a lot of people forecasting their business, when I said to them, how did you get to that turnover figure? A lot of them went a little bit of flip my finger in the air, a bit of a guess, or it might have been based on last year, and I've added a little bit, but I don't really know whether I should have added 10% or 20%. However, if you break it down, say, okay, well, it's these 3 factors, you know how many customers you need to sell to, how many times they're going to buy from you, and what your average sales value is. So then where I map my forecasting out, so say, for example, my forecasting says I need to do 5,000 or 50,000 or 500,000 in this month. If I don't achieve that in that first month or the next month, what do I do for the second month? Do I just try harder? Do I hope I'm luckier? Well, that's just wishing. Whereas if I've got my 3 factors, I can say, okay, well, what happened? Did I not sell to enough customers? Did they not buy enough from me? Or did I actually discount too much and therefore not get my average sales value that I wanted? And therefore, I can change my habits in the business, I can change my patterns in the business, and therefore make sure I improve those numbers to hit my target next month. So think about the real numbers that are driving your business, and there'll be real numbers behind your margin, there'll be real numbers that are impacting on your bottom line profit. But again, margin, bottom line profit will just be an outcome. And we're really lucky nowadays with great software such as Xero to be able to manage our business with accurate data, which is now live. Now, yes, it's only as good as somebody inputting it or somebody updating it, as with any software, but we have that ability now to have real accurate data at our fingertips. And that can help us really to establish our real numbers in our business and identify what it is that we need to be measuring. Now, personally, I believe everything comes back to a number. So, for example, if you said your success was driven on customer service, well, what does that mean? Does it mean that 9 out of 10 people say your service is excellent? If it was driven on operational excellence, what does that mean? Is it on delivery? So therefore, your products get delivered within 2 working days? Again, what are your key performance indicators that you need to measure on a regular basis? The other thing about making your numbers work is the impact on cash. I want to go back to forecasting. I'll talk about forecasting and see forecasting. A lot of people just do a profit forecast and that's it. But what's the impact on your balance sheet and what's the impact on your cash? Now, if you're borrowing money, your lender's going to be more interested in your balance sheet impact than some of the other things. Yes, they want you to have profit. Yes, they want you to be cash rich, but they're going to be looking at the impact on your balance sheet, making sure that your gearing, if you like, doesn't swing the wrong way, and therefore you can't service the debt that you have in your business. So, three-way forecasting thinks about, okay, what's your profit and loss, and the movement on your profit and loss impacts therefore on your balance sheet, therefore the impact on your cash flow, depending on things like payment terms, etc. When you've also then done your forecast, then sensitize your business. Now, this has been a prime example during lockdown. Now, admittedly, most businesses, if not every business, didn't see the pandemic impact coming, even those that perhaps claim that they did, or the level of impact that they saw. But we could sensitize our business for losing a member of staff who's key to the business and perhaps a key account holder for most of our customers. We could sensitize our business for losing our main customer, who's 20% of our turnover. And by sensitizing those what-if scenarios, we can see what the impact is in advance. If that did happen, we know what we need to do to adapt. We know what we need to do to fix that situation or revert that situation. So again, sensitize your business, sensitize your forecast, and know the numbers that work for your business. And those real numbers will really help you drive your business much more effectively with your key performance indicators. To scale our business and develop our business, we need to maximize our people investment. And that really starts with yourself as the leader of the business, and ultimately the culture and the leadership that you show that will control how people get attracted to your business and how easy it is to bring talent to your business and retain that talent in your business. And quite often I see business leaders that they like the glory, they don't like the pain, and they try to manage the business rather than manage the people and allow the people to have the gain, if you like, of the success. So are you leading your business? Are you managing your business, or are you leading and managing your people to manage the business for you? Now, even in a market where there's lots of people, and we haven't seen that until fairly recently, it's really difficult to attract and select the right people for your business. So you need to really have clarity about who it is that you want to attract. I'll talk to my clients about, yes, having job descriptions, yes, having person profiles of who you want to attract to your business, but also have an impact statement for every single role that you have. So again, going back to the diagram we've got there, the organisational chart, what does your organisational chart look like? But what impact do you need each role to make? So when you, maybe at this moment in time, are doing all the different roles in the business, finance, sales, marketing, operation, you can then establish and say, okay, well, if I'm doing the finance today, this is what I need to do, which is job description, and this is all I need to action in terms of making an impact for the business. Therefore, when you recruit into that role, you're really clear about, yes, what they need to do, job description, and you can be clear in the communication about what impact you expect, but also it gives you a measurement in terms of whether that person is effective in delivering what you need for the business. And as I said earlier, think about your team internally and externally. Now, I talk about core culture, and core reflects to commitment, ownership, responsibility, and excellence. And if we can bring those four things into the culture, it will really help to shape an effective culture that will attract and retain your best people. And if you've not heard of DISC profiling before, I recommend looking at some sort of personality profiling. DISC is one of them. It looks at dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. And different people bring different personality traits to the business, and different roles lean towards those traits. So, for example, a salesperson may have a high influence, a high I. A bookkeeper, for example, may be high in their steadiness and their compliance, and the business owner and entrepreneur may be high in their D and their dominance. Different people are right for different roles. You need to think about, if I'm recruiting for that particular role, what sort of characteristics or personality am I looking for? but also if I'm going to bring people into the business, how do they blend together? And certainly from the personal experience I had is that when I had my bookkeepers, I had a team of steady, compliant people. And when I brought somebody in who was more of an influence role, liked to talk a lot more, liked to consult a lot more, then sort of blew the dynamics of my team. So again, be really clear what it is you want for your team, and again, with that clarity, that will help you with the attraction and retention of your people. And the 10th step is making your business work like clockwork, and that predominantly comes back to your role to start with. So what is it that you want to do in the business yourself? Do you want to step away fully, or is there a key part of the business that you still want to keep hold of? And then think about your delegation and your trust. And for me, that's the biggest challenge for most business owners when they're looking to scale their business, is can they let go? Can they delegate effectively with clarity? And can they trust others to do the job and run the business as well as they can? Because most people will say to me, they can never run the business as well as I can. They're never as committed as I am. But what is it that you need to do to support them to be able to do that and to give them the motivation to want to do that? And when we think about running our business like clockwork, we have to think about our strategies, but also our operational excellence. And systemization and systemized processes in the business will support great habits in the business. And if you have great habits that are repetitive because people are following a system or process that works, then you're able to scale much more effectively, much more efficiently. And you should have operational excellence at every single touch point. So, right from, again, we talked about the sales process before they become a customer, but then what's the steps when they do become a customer, and then even the after sales, and are your steps as effective now that you've got them as a customer? And thinking about what resources that you need at each independent point. So is it time, is it money, is it people that person, that customer needs to support them through your business? When I talk about your role, one of my favourite books is The E-Myth, behind me here by Michael Gerber. And The E-Myth talks about 3 roles: technician, manager, entrepreneur. And I guess you need to decide whether you want to be a technician or the business owner, the entrepreneur, because most people, although they claim to start their business because they're entrepreneurial spirit, start their business because they're a good technician of what it is that they do, whether it's sales, whether it's the operational delivery, for example, the bookkeeping, etc. So what is it that you do now, and where do you want to be? And that process, maybe you are a technician now, you want to move away from doing the business, to working in the business, to work on the business, to manage more people, and then to effectively step away from the business, be the entrepreneur, and watch the business sort of benefit from its own assets by generating more profit from its existing profit, its existing assets that it has in the business. And if the business can then operate without you, so I would say to my clients, could you go away for a month at least, and the business would still operate without you? And then you'll get to a point when you eventually need to exit the business, and you're planning for exit. We all have to exit at some point. Hopefully we don't exit on our deathbed, but if we're planning for exit, what does it look like? If I want to sell my business for X thousand pounds, X million pounds, what do I need to be doing right now to build the business towards that? And again, systemization of your business will increase the value of your business. The last thing I want to touch about in my 10 steps is the 7 steps related to that 10th step about how you can grow your business with effective strategies. And the 7 key steps to effectively generating more revenue is: can you generate more leads? Can you convert better? Can you get people to buy more often from you in terms of more things from you at that point of sale? Can you increase your average sale value? Can you improve your margin? When they're then a customer, can you get them to buy more often from you? And can you increase your lifetime, your customer retention? And if you can, then you will see results. So in this diagram, you do it with your own numbers, but you can see where you are now. 10% improvement in each of those lines gives us a near double result because of the cumulative effect. This is called the marginal gains philosophy. it's been around for years, but it's most recently brought to public eye with Sir David Beresford and British Cycling, whereby he took British Cycling, took all the different elements apart, what they rode, what they ate, how they trained, what they wore, how the bike was made up in terms of the pedals, the wheels, the tyres, etc. Gave different responsibilities, different people. Said, improve each element, let's bring it all back together, and then obviously the rest is history. So world champions, Olympic champions, broke away to Team Sky, Tour de France, domination. So again, really effective tool that you can use, and I encourage you to do that with your own members. But just a bonus for you beyond the 10 steps is the business model canvas. It's a one-page strategic plan that I use. I will talk about this more in my new webinar that I'm now launching. This is one of the tools that I'm going to be talking about. And the business model canvas talks about that one, or demonstrates how you can build your one-page strategy plan. It talks about your value proposition in the middle. The right-hand side is all about your customers and who it is you're looking to attract, how you're going to attract them, what relationship you've got with them, and how that's all interlinked. I'll talk about this on my next webinar. On the left-hand side is all those key things in the business, your key partners, your subcontractors, your supply chain, those key activities, your high-power activities that we talked about earlier, and your key resources. That might be your team, that might be your software, hardware that you've got in the business. And at the bottom there, underpinning it all, is your revenue, your cost structure. If you get your customer element right, that will drive your revenue stream in terms of what the individual revenue streams look like, what level they look like, as your proposition. If you get the left-hand side right in terms of the key elements, then that will drive your cost structure and keep your cost structure as lean as possible. And then there's no coincidence, the value proposition in the middle, the revenue is greater than the cost structure, so that's your profit, and that's your profit return for your value proposition. So I'll talk about that more in my next webinar, and I hope you can join me next month for that. So we talked today about this webinar being clockwork, and ultimately you having to make that step change. And as I say, it's not just a simple change, it's often a step change that's required to make the change in your business that's needed to get the return on that investment for all your hard work. My offer to yourself is that if you'd like a complimentary 60-minute session looking at your strategy, looking at something that's been an obstacle to your own growth, then please get in touch, take a look at my online diary, book a session with me, or you can download off my website 4 ebooks that I have to help you with the development and growth of your business. How I can support business owners like yourself is one-to-one mentoring, where you get my undivided attention. It's all about you, it's all about your strategy, it's all about your business. I don't work with any competing businesses so that I don't have any conflicts of interest. I also have some group mentoring, looking at a new cohort for my mastermind group later this year. And I also work as a non-exec for certain clients or in a similar support role. And from time to time, when COVID allows, we have our weekend boot camps, which is really sort of like a social mixer with a business purpose, where you get away from everything for a good weekend with like-minded business owners, working on some elements of your business, and also socialising with like-minded people. So thank you again for joining me for this webinar today. Hopefully there's something for you to take away. I always say that in my webinars, hopefully there's a nugget in there somewhere for you to take away for the development of your business. There's my contact details. If I can help you in any particular way, then please do get in touch, and I'd be delighted to have a further conversation. But again, thank you again for joining me, and I wish you every success with your own business.